Welcome to the Foundations of Business Communications training presentation. My name is Emily Greiner, and I am pursuing my bachelor's degree at Florida State College of Jacksonville. I'm currently in my third year in their Communications and Media program. I'm going to be your guide through today's presentation. Business communications can be defined as the process of sharing information with people inside and outside of a company. Today, I have identified 4 foundational concepts that are the pillars to having effective business communications. The 4 key elements we are going to be discussing today are ethics, types of communications, the writing process, and professionalism. By understanding these 4 components, you will have a better understanding of why and how we communicate and interact with others both inside and outside of a company. Today, we are only going to be discussing 4 elements of business communication. This topic is complex, so I would encourage you to strengthen your writing and communicating skills further by looking into additional creditable resources. There will be additional resources available to you at the end of the presentation. To begin, we start with ethics. Ethics can be defined as the professional, social, or individual system of moral principles that go beyond the rule of law that tell us how to act. Ethics are identified as a foundational element to business communications because they determine our perspective when composing or responding to a message. Ethics determines what information we include or leave out, how we emphasize certain elements of a message, as well as the way we organize a message. Our main goal as communicators is not to deceive. Many times we are put in a position where our purpose is to persuade or inform. We want to make sure that what we are saying is factual and evidence-based, and that the manner in which we are writing it in is clear and concise. It is important to remember that though there may not be legal implications for behaving unethically, unethical behavior does have its consequences. Remember that the messages you send within and outside an organization can be made public in the case of a government investigation. It's also important to protect your credibility, as well as protecting the image of the company you represent. Any employee, manager, or executive's actions can impact you. So making sure we are conducting ourselves ethically, we are ensuring that as we communicate, we are respecting and protecting the individuals inside and outside of our company. There are many types of business communications. Today, we are going to discuss 6 common business communications: face-to-face communication, phone or text messaging, email, letters, memorandums or memos, and reports. The first is face-to-face. There are 2 key factors that play a role in face-to-face communication, and by understanding them, you're providing a basis for the rest of the communications you will encounter. The 2 factors are verbal communication and nonverbal communication. Verbal communication is defined as the use of words to convey a message, while nonverbal communication is defined as the transmission of messages or signals through a nonverbal platform, such as eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, posture, and body language. Another factor at play in face-to-face communication is culture. Different cultures carry out business and communication practices differently. For example, some cultures, especially in the West, place importance on being on time, while other cultures, such as in the Middle East or countries in the Pacific, don't place time orientation in high importance. So, be prepared and do your research. Phone calls and text messaging are a form of communication that you most likely have a lot of experience in. Phone calls are a richer form of communication, are the next best way to communicate following face-to-face communication, as both phone calls and face-to-face allow you to hear the writer's tone. Since you are most likely very knowledgeable in the basics of phone calls and text messaging, here are a few tips when communicating with them in the professional environment. Always follow the company standard, whether it be in your salutation, closing, or even how many rings pass before answering the phone. Avoid taking important work calls in public. Be sure to schedule them during a time where you will be in a quiet environment where private information can remain confidential. Reserve texting for quick messages, and though informal, be sure to maintain a level of professionalism. The next communication medium is the email. Emails are most likely another form of communication you are familiar with. Some important things to consider when communicating by email are your subject line. Never leave the subject line blank, or your email might be deleted or go straight to a junk folder. Be sure that your subject line references your main point, utilizing keywords that may help your receiver search for the message if having to refer back to it at a later time. Have an appropriate greeting. You are in a professional environment, so be sure to utilize formal greetings like Mr. or Mrs. Always try to address an individual by their name. However, if the information isn't available, utilize their professional title. Be sure that your message is fulfilling its purpose. You can do this by choosing your words in a way that are clear and concise. Finally, be sure to sign off with your contact information so that whoever you are writing to can respond. Be sure to leave your professional phone number as well as an email address. Letters are similar to email. However, they are more formal and should be utilized for messaging outside of the company. In many situations, letters are used for personal notes, either for professional or personal congratulations, appreciation, or sympathy. These messages should have no ulterior motive. It should be prompt, sincere, direct, brief, and specific. You may even want to include a personal memory or close with a comforting comment if appropriate. A memo or a memorandum is a written message reserved for communications within an organization. They are for longer and formal messages, but can be used for short messages, serving as a cover note. Reports are meant to inform or persuade its audience so that they can make a decision. Reports utilize data, two types specifically: primary data, which is collected by the researcher to solve a specific problem, and secondary data, which is collected by someone else for some other purpose. Reports are either situational or business. Situational reports are made once and are often more challenging compared to a business report, as they require the writer to start from scratch. Business reports, however, are organized and utilized to make situations and solve problems. Reports often utilize graphs, charts, or infographics to help organize data. These tools can make a large amount of information easy to read and understand, if done correctly. Now that you are familiar with the mediums in which we communicate, let's discuss the basics of writing them. The writing process will be the roadmap to writing effective messages. It all begins with audience analysis. Audience analysis is the studying of needs, experiences, background, personality, and other aspects of the receiver. By utilizing audience analysis, you as the writer can gain a better understanding of the reader's perspective. This will help you in choosing the amount of examples or persuading you may need to do also. Next is planning. During the planning stage, you determine the purpose of the message, what information you need to give your reader, and what order to present it in. Utilizing brainstorming or mind mapping, otherwise known as clustering, may help you visualize your ideas. The third step in the writing process is drafting. During the drafting stage, you are going to compose a preliminary version of the message. During this stage, it may be common to struggle with writer's block. To help prevent writer's block, allow plenty of time for writing and give yourself patience. During this stage, it's important to not focus on creating a perfect message, but just getting information out and written down. Next is revising. During the revising stage, you modify and make improvements to your message. Towards the end of your revising, you will edit, making sure that you conform to language standards. Finally, the last stage in the writing process is proofreading. During this stage, you should ensure that there are no errors. There are 3 types of errors: content errors, which are errors that take away from the purpose of your writing; typographical errors, which are errors that include misspelled words or grammatical issues; and finally, there's formatting errors, which are errors with the message's structure. Professionalism is the common thread throughout communications. No matter the medium you choose to communicate your message, maintaining professionalism is incredibly important. As we discussed when visiting the topic of ethics, your actions affect and reflect more than just yourself. They reflect your coworkers, your team, and your company. Professionalism displays respect for all parties involved. No matter how informal the message might be, there should always be professionalism. This training has gone through 4 of the foundational elements of business communication: Understanding these elements will give you a better understanding of why and how we communicate and interact with others, both inside and outside of a company. As stated in the beginning, this just skims the surface of the complex topic of business communications. The next slide will give you additional resources that you can use to help build your writing, business, and communicating skills.